Okay,
Okay.
right now.
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for
Go ahead,
joining.
Sam.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Summer. Okay, so welcome everyone, and thanks for joining. And I hope you enjoy today's presentation. What I'm going to do is just spend about an hour or so just quoting from some of the great works of literature from the past. See if we can't get an idea of the cosmos that we live in, the nature of it. And so with our limited senses, we can expand our consciousness to see what some of the great writers of the past have to say about our wonderful cosmology. Because obviously we live in a time when there's a lot of convoluted information. And especially in view of the fact that the globe model and gravity have been taught since kindergarten, we have grown up accepting this, and it seems plausible, feasible, doable, believable, simply because spheres are divine creations, and everything in the universe that is a sphere is said to be divine, and the universe creates spheres and cubes, and this is true. And so the ancients succumbed to the teaching that we may perhaps live on a globe. And the origin of this teaching came from the materialistic point of view. The spiritualists did not teach this. There was never a time when the globe was taught from the spiritualist point of view. In other words, from antiquity, mythology, and cosmologies. But somewhere around a couple of thousand years ago, I'm not sure, but they say Aristotle was around 2,400 years ago. Someone needs to mute their mic, by the way. Aristotle was a materialist speculative philosopher, and I believe that the materialist paradigm began in earnest around that time, shortly after Aristotle parted company with Plato. Now, Plato and Pythagoras belonged to a different school altogether, totally different kind of thinking. It was much more transcendental. They were not perfect, and this is why you get a lot of people trying to pin the globe onto Pythagoras and the mystery schools, and I find this so contemptible. I find this so erroneous. Maybe writers in hindsight did attribute the ball to Pythagoras, but Pythagoras certainly was not of the materialist school. So there's a big difference in the two schools that have been handed down from antiquity, and one tends to glorify the creator, the spiritualist transcendental model, and the other takes away glory from the creator and gives it to an impersonal force of chaos, a force that has no intelligence, it's random, chaotic, and somehow order comes from this chaos. And so the purpose of today's call is to tie in the ancient and holy science of astrology with the true cosmological geocentric model. And last week in the first call that we had in this group, I read from this book, Thomas H. Burgoyne, who was a globalist, I guess. And this is volume 2 of The Light of Egypt, The Science of the Soul and the Stars. And in the introduction there, his first opening words, he explains how it is that astrology derives its influence from the sun on the ecliptic. Contrary to what unenlightened people and astrologers who don't know their science correctly teach that the science derives its influence from stars. And the eighth sphere above our heads, which is called the starry heavens, in which the zodiac is contained. And of course it runs obliquely opposed to the Milky Way. So I think it's about 60 degrees inclined obliquely. And so I'll just read briefly some of the portions of what I read last week. The shining zodiac, with its myriad constellations and its perfect galaxy of starry systems, derives its subtle influence as impressed astrologically upon the human constitution from the solar center of our solar system, not from the stars, which occupy the 12 mansions of space. Aries, the fiery, and Pisces, the watery, are always there. And instead of being an argument against astrology, it is one of its grandest truths that in all ages and in all times, Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, has been found ever the same, equally as well as Pisces, the last. So here we have Aries, the Lamb of God, and Pisces, the fisherman of men. Jesus assumes both roles, the first and the last, and he says, I am the first and the last in the scriptures. And so Aries is fiery and Pisces is watery. And what Thomas H. Burgoyne is saying here is that along the ecliptic, Aries will always be there. So on March the 21st, at that point of equilibrium called the vernal equinox, always, every year, year in, year out, will begin the influence of that fiery sign, cardinal fire, Aries, the ram, and initiating the new year. Always the first, never displaced. And so then he goes on to explain how when Taurus comes along 30 degrees later, the sun is now displaced 30 degrees from that point of balance. So the sun's influence now is different. And then he explains when the sun reaches Gemini, it is 60 degrees removed from balance. Therefore, its influence is different. And then when it gets to Cancer, it reaches 90 degrees. And that is a right angle. And so this angle is called a square. And so Cancer is another tropical sign. And it sends its square influence to Aries. And so Cancer has its watery influence. And what do we mean by fiery, watery, airy, and earthy? Well, they're just vibrations. The fire vibration is the highest. And it causes individuals who are born on the ecliptic in that period to be of a fiery nature, mystical. And so they are always seeking the mystical connection to their reality. Those born under the Aries signs, Gemini, Aquarius, Libra, are always seeking intellectual pursuits and always operating in that modus operandi of the mind and the intellect. And the watery signs, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, are always in tune with their emotions and use their emotions more efficiently and effectively than the other signs. And the earthy signs are practical and sensual. And so they are grounded and they have all of the other elements in them. Hence they are more complete and more grounded. And so what Thomas H. Burgoyne explains clearly is that the sun is the ruler of the lights. And all the other lights in the heavens are controlled by the motions of the sun on its ecliptic, in its course. And the scriptures in Isaiah chapter 40 in the Bible, it says that. By the way, I think I might read that. I have my my old Jehovah's Witness Bible here. This Bible's been around since '81, and as you can see, being a good little Jehovah's Witness boy, it's all marked. This was my personal Bible. I have many, many Bibles, but this is my personal one. Good little, Okay, so as you can see, I have mentioned many times that I know this book backwards, upside down, underwater, wherever you want to read any scripture from this book. I know the book where it's in and the chapter. And so what we'll find is that the Bible says that the Lord made a trajectory for the sun, a path, like a bridegroom in his chamber. He comes out of his bridegroom in the morning. And a tent and a tabernacle, and the sun will not vary and will not waver from its course. And so what we find, let's have a look at that scripture, shall we? Isaiah 40:22. There is one who is dwelling above the circle of the earth, the circle, and the dwellers in which are as grasshoppers. Sorry, the verse I'm reading is this, and it's, as you can see, it's underlined and marked. And one who is stretching out the heaven as a cloth, as a fine, who spreads out the sun like a tent in which to dwell. The one who is reducing high officials to nothing, who has made the very judges of the earth as a mere unreality. Anyway, the point being that he has stretched out the heavens above the circle of the earth, and the sun is in a path, in a trajectory over this beautiful earth. And so I did show how this worked last week, but I'm going to do it again just quickly on my whiteboard here. And so what we have is the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Tropic of Capricorn is at the bottom, Tropic of Cancer is at the top, and the equator divides these two tropics. And what we have is, we can either do it this way, the sine wave, or we can actually do an analemma. And this place is always the starting point. March the 21st, equilibrium. And so, and here, of course, at the solstice, here, this is the 21st of December, and this is Capricorn the goat, this is Aries the lamb. And what you have here is the sun climbing from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer. And the goat climbs from the original starting point at Capricorn. Capri means goat. And Aries starts climbing from this point here. And what we have in fact is a spiral. As the sun does circles clockwise, and the circles reduce and get smaller and slower as they get to Cancer, it is making a coil, like a tent. And here there is compression, and here there is expansion. Here is hot, here is cold. And so Aries is in the middle here. And so where Aries begins is a place of equilibrium along this vortex here. And Aries must compress as it gets to the Tropic of Cancer, and then from Cancer everything expands as it gets to the Tropic of Capricorn. And so, keeping that in mind, we'll come back to this in a minute. I'd like to read from Macrobius. Now this is 4th century, Macrobius. And this is the commentary of the dream of Scipio. And now, being Italian, I'll pronounce that Scipio, because that's the correct pronunciation. But there it is, the commentary on the dream of Scipio, which was actually written 2,200 years ago, so 600 years before his time. And so great was this dream of Scipio, a general of Rome who defeated Carthage, that he was given a vision of the heavens and how they work. He was privy to some amazing transcendental science. So I'd like to read from that as you keep in mind the graphic that I just drew on the board. It says there in chapter 7, at this point we shall discuss the order of the steps by which the soul descends from the sky to the infernal regions of this life. The Milky Way girdles the zodiac, its great circle meeting obliquely so that it crosses it at the 2 tropical signs, Capricorn and Cancer. Natural philosophers named those the portals of the sun, because the solstices lie athwart the sun's path on either side, checking farther progress and causing it to retrace its course across the belt beyond whose limits it never trespasses. Souls are believed to pass through these portals when going from the sky to the earth and returning from the earth to the sky. Please take note, guys, because I could read the same science from many, many books. This is just one of them. And this is the system that...
What's his name again, Santos?
The name? Commentary on the Dream of Scipio, Macrobius.
Macrobius, okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, the guy mixes flat earth and globe earth here in this book. So if you get this book, don't be disheartened, because you've got to remember, Aristotle lived 800 years previous to this guy, and there was enough indoctrination about the materialist globe model, which I believe is pure demonic teachings. And so he used both models in this book. Interesting. So let's continue on. For this reason, one is called the portal of men, and the other the portal of gods. Cancer, the portal of man, or men, because through it descent is made to the infernal regions. Capricorn, the portal of gods, because through it souls return to their rightful abode of immortality to be reckoned among the gods. This is what Homer, with his divine intelligence, signifies in his description of the cave at Ithaca. Pythagoras also thinks that the infernal regions of Dis begin with the Milky Way and extend downwards, because souls falling away from it seem to have withdrawn from the heavens. He says that the reason why milk is the first nourishment offered to the newborn infant is that the first movement of souls slipping into earthly bodies is from the Milky Way. Now you see too why Scipio, when the Milky Way had been shown to him, was told that souls of the blessed, proceed from here and return hither. Now I'm just going to keep reading because this is too good. Some of it is slightly irrelevant to the point I'm wanting to make, which is to extol the science of tropical astrology and how we can use it in our lives. But it's very, very important because this shows how our souls have been entangled in matter and how we can disentangle our souls from matter. So going on, paragraph 4, he says, so long as the souls heading downward still remain in Cancer, they are considered in the company of the gods, since in that position they have not left the Milky Way. But when in their descent they have reached Leo, they enter upon the first stages of their future condition. Since the first steps of birth and certain primary traces of human nature are found in Leo, and moreover, since Aquarius is in opposition to Leo, sitting just as it is rising, the festival in honor of the dead is celebrated when the sun is in Aquarius. That is, in the sign contrary and hostile to human life. The soul, descending from the place where the zodiac and the Milky Way intersect, is protracted in its downward course from a sphere, which is the only divine form, into a cone. Just as a line is sprung from a point and passes from this indivisible state into length from its point, which is a monad, it here comes into a dyad. So a line that starts from a dot, which is indivisible, and it goes into length. Now it's a dyad because it has two opposed. It's polarized. It's dualistic. Whereas a dot is not. It's oneness. Which is its first protraction. This is the condition that Plato called at once indivisible and divisible. When he was speaking in the Timaeus about the construction of the world soul, souls, whether of the world or of the individual, will be found to be now unacquainted with division if they are reflecting on the significance of their divine state, and again susceptible to it when that singleness is being dispersed through the parts of the world or of man. When the soul is being drawn towards a body in this first protraction of itself, it begins to experience the tumultuous influx of matter rushing upon it. This is what Plato alludes to when he speaks in the Phaedo of a soul suddenly staggering as if drunk, as it is being drawn into the body. He wishes to imply the recent draught of onrushing matter by which the soul, defiled and weighed down, is pressed earthwards. Another clue to this secret is the location of the constellation of the Bowl of Bacchus in the region between Cancer and Leo, indicating that there for the first time intoxication overtakes descending souls with the influx of matter. Whence the companion of intoxication, forgetfulness, also begins to steal quietly upon souls at that point. Now, if souls were to bring with them to their bodies a memory of the divine order of which they were conscious in the sky, there would be no disagreement among men in regard to divinity. But indeed, all of them in their descent drink of forgetfulness, some more, some less. Consequently, although the truth is not evident to all on earth, all nevertheless have an opinion, since opinion is born of failure of memory. No truth is more accessible to those who drank Truth is more accessible to those who drank less of forgetfulness, because they more easily recall what they previously knew above. That is why in Greek the word for reading means knowledge regained. When we are learning the truth, we are relearning those things that we naturally knew before the influx of matter intoxicated our souls as they approached their bodies. Okay, so point here is that souls enter at the top tropic of Cancer at the compression point at the top of the sun's climb. They are drawn in from the Milky Way into this planet and mixed with earthly elements. And so eventually the souls then are released at the Tropic of Capricorn. And so the bowl of Bacchus, which is in Leo, crater, the Holy Grail, is the cup that we drink from, the cup of forgetfulness, the cup of lethe, which is lethal. You see, some people drink a lethal dose from this cup, and they are forgetful completely of the divine nature that they were before they came from the skies. And so we are further instructed about the nature of our bodies by another 4th century astrologer called Firmicus Maternus. And this book's called Mathesios. And so I'd like to read about the nature of this divine science from Firmicus Maternus. And this is the 3rd book, paragraph 1. In the first place, my dear Lollianus, we must be aware that God, the Creator, copying nature, has made man in the image of the universe, a mixture of 4 elements, fire, water, air and earth, so that a well-proportioned combination might produce the living being as a divine imitation. With his divine skill, he so composed man that the whole force and essence of the elements is collected in that small body. In this way, he prepared a lodging for the divine spirit which descends from the heavenly soul to maintain the mortal body. This spirit, though fragile, is nevertheless a likeness of the spirit of the universe. Thus man, like a tiny universe, is sustained in the everlasting fiery movement of the 5 planets and the sun and moon. Very interesting. The 5 planets and the sun and moon. So these 5 planets, they were called planets because they are planes, but they were known as stars, the wandering stars. And the sun and the moon being the chief luminaries, being totally responsible and in control of all of our life's energies and the existence of our lives on this temporal conditioned plane. So they are the conditioners. So this is why Firmicus exhorted up-and-coming astrologers, seekers of the holy science, to be worthy of this science. And this is what he said. Now you, whoever you are, who try to read these books, since you have received the whole knowledge of this divine science and are now endowed with the secrets of the stars and have learned the first principles of the art, shape yourself in the image and likeness of divinity, so that you may always be a model of excellence. He who daily speaks about the gods, or with the gods, must shape his mind to approach the likeness of divinity. Therefore study and pursue all the distinguishing marks of virtue, and when you have trained yourself in these, be easy of access so that if anyone wishes to consult you about anything, he may approach you without fear. Be modest, upright, sober, eat little, be content with few goods, so that the shameful love of money may not defile the glory of this divine science. Try with your training and principles to outdo the training and principles of worthy priests, for it is necessary that the acolyte of the sun and moon and the other gods, through whom all earthly things are governed, should so educate his mind always that it be proved worthy by the attestation of all mankind. Keep away at all times from the enticements of the shows, lest anyone think you are a patron of this kind of thing. For the priest of the gods must be apart from low, base pleasures. Do not entrust the secrets of this religion to the sinful greed of men's minds, for one should not initiate souls of depraved men into the holy rituals. This divine science cannot at any time adhere to a mind captured and stained by wicked greed, and it always sustains the greatest loss when it is defamed by improper intentions. Therefore be pure and chaste, and if you have separated yourself from all kinds of wicked activity which destroy the spirit, and if the desire for the right way of life has freed you from any suspicion of crime, and if you conduct yourself as one mindful of the divine seed, approach this work and commit to memory the following books. So, those who have drunk from the crater, the cup of lethe, have been lethally affected by forgetfulness. And this is why there are so many opinions. Oh, God is such and such. Jesus is such and such. And so everybody has their own version and model of their God and the Creator because of forgetfulness and not having direct knowledge through meditation and stillness and contemplation of the great works. So they're going to priests who Firmicus Maternus clearly tells us your art must be superior to the priests. Your astrological wisdom must be superior to the priests. Because the pastors, they don't teach about astros anymore, astros. They've forgotten the language of the universe, the logos of the universe, astrologos, astrology. They do not speak the word of God. And so astrology is the word of God because, as Firmicus says, that the universe, our body, is the receptacle of all the principles that come from the sky, that come from the ecliptic. So as the sun yearly on its course starts at Aries and goes up to Cancer, then down to Capricorn and back to Aries, it is with its fiery energies, it is creating. It is the creator, Jehovah, Jesus, Brahma, Vivasvan, Surya. Doesn't matter what you call it, it's always the sun. The sun is Krishna. The sun is Radharani. The moon is Radharani. Not directly. It's one of the protractions or expansions. So the sun is not the whole embodiment of Krishna, but it is the chief symbol that we have locally in our solar system that represents that one. And so, what are the stars and what are the so-called planets? Well, reading on in Macrobius, it's very interesting that the ancients taught that we were animated by those celestial and eternal fires. Indeed, fire, even if it is divine, is nevertheless corporeal. And we could not be animated by a body, even if it were divine, but rather by that which animates those very bodies which are and seem to be divine, that is, by the part of the world soul which we said consists of pure mind. All is mind. The universe is mind. And so after saying minds have been given to them out of the eternal fires you called fixed stars and planets, pay attention, he presently added, which are quickened with divine minds, so as clearly to distinguish between the corporeal portion of the stars, the eternal fires, and the soul portion, the divine minds. He also shows that from the stars, the power of mind comes into our soul. So when you look up at the stars in the firmament, you are seeing the power of your mind, because that's where the power of your mind comes from. These are mental astral beings. They are gods. They are entities and creatures. And their work is to look down upon us and give us mental virtues, spiritual virtues, and to transform us into gods. Transform us into the wonderful beings that we are designed to be, eternal and everlasting, unconditioned, unlimited, unqualified. And so it goes on to say, it is interesting to note that this division of soul embraces the opinions of all who are known to have made pronouncements about the soul. Plato said that the soul was an essence moving itself. Xenocrates, a number moving itself. Aristotle called it entelechy. Pythagoras and Philolaus, harmony. Posidonius, idea. Asclepiades, a harmonious functioning of the five senses. Hippocrates, a subtle spirit diffused through every part of the body. Heraclides, Ponticus, light. Heraclitus the philosopher, a spark of starry essence. Zeno, a spirit grown into the body. Democritus, a spirit implanted in the atoms, having such freedom and movement that it permeated the body. Critolaus, the peripatetic, stated that it was composed of a fifth essence. Hipparchus called it fire. There you go, the soul is fire. Fire, light, energy. Anaximenes, air. Empedocles and Critias, blood. That's what the Jehovah's Witnesses teach. The soul is in the blood. It's all philosophical. See, and half of these are materialist scientists, guys, materialist philosophers. So this is why opinion abounds. And this is why we are here today to sort through the opinions and to find the truth. Let me just finish this. Parmenides, one of my favorites, a mixture of earth and fire. Xenophanes, one of earth and water. Boethos, of air and fire. And Epicurus, a mixture of heat, air, and breath. Well, that's interesting because in the Hebrew Bible, it says that God breathed life into Adam, air into Adam, Nevma, and he became a living soul. So the soul is the breath. You're breathing, you have blood, you have heat, fire in your souls. This is the soul. Okay, and so I just wanted to read one more portion from here, and then move on. So again, speaking of the creation of man, Macrobius goes on to say, man alone was endowed with reason, the power of mind, the seat of which is in the head. But he was also given the other two faculties of sense perception and growth, since his body is mortal. Accordingly, man possesses reasoning power and perceives and grows, and solely by his reasoning power has deserved precedence over the other animals, which, because they are always bent forward and have difficulty in looking upwards, have drifted away from the heavens, and which, because they have not received in any part of their bodies a likeness of divine shapes, have been allotted to share of mind, and consequently no share of mind, and consequently lack reasoning power. Only two faculties belong to them, sense perception and growth. And so we begin to see how special we are. Thence comes the race of men and of beasts, and all the rest of the creation, to affirm that soul always retains the same vigour, but is restricted in the exercise of its powers in living creatures because of the grossness of their bodies. He adds, insofar as it is not hindered by an injurious bodily frame and by other mortal frailties. I did not intend to read that actually, but nonetheless, that's fine. So there basically we get an idea of the nature of the cosmos and how souls enter into this cell, this solar system, and are nurtured by the 5 wandering stars and the sun and the moon. And so an interesting quote from Walter Russell, just to tie in the nature of this, the vortex that the sun is creating yearly. Walter Russell says, in the book, A New Concept of the Universe, page 19, electricity is an effect of strain, tension and resistance caused by the energy of desire in one light of mind. Now, well, that is a very nice quote, but it's exactly not what I want to, not at all what I wanted to read. This is what I wanted to read. I mean, the book is, as you can see, mine is just covered in, it's just totally, what a book. That's exceptional. But I wanted to read the nature of these conical vortexes that the sun and similar planets are making. He says, all orbits are elliptical, for they are angular conic sections. Likewise, all are either centripetal or centrifugal spirals, because their paths are either in the direction of the apex or the base of the cone. And so, as we saw before, they are conical because they sometimes appear to be like this, on an angle, and not correctly straight. And so, what he's saying is all orbits, in other words, the sun is orbiting, it's called an orbit, although it's not exactly an orbit, but the Sun is doing a yearly course, and this is the yearly course, 365 of these. And so it's either centripetal or centrifugal. And all orbits are doing this. And so what we're seeing here is the reason why Thomas H. Burgoyne explains that the influence of astrology comes from this. It comes from this vortex. And the Sun produces this vortex yearly. And so Aries will always have this contracting energy. And so will Taurus, which is about here. And so will Gemini, which is here. And these are the spring months, 1, 2, 3. Then once the Sun has hit the Tropic of Cancer, and as you can see here by the analemma clearly shows that the circles that the Sun does at the Tropic of Cancer are very small and must be slower than the circles that it does when it's at the Tropic of Capricorn, because they're all 24 hours long. This circle here is 24 hours long, and this circle here is 24 hours long. And so this compression, the Sun is actually compressing as it goes from here, compressing, forever compressing. And that compression is drawing life into the solar system, i.e. animals and human beings. And they are incarnating due to this influence of the Sun. And this is why spring always generates life. You see, the blossom starts here. And even though the blossom starts here, on the way down in the southern, what can we call it? The southern...
The outer ring?
Yeah.
That's what we decided last time.
The outer ring, this is only an effect. It's only an effect for the outer ring and those that live in the southern part of what we call the southern hemisphere, the outer ring. But Libra only can be expressed in this part of the vortex, not Aries. Even though the blossom occurs in the southern hemisphere, it is still an expanding Sun. It is not a contracting Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why. And this is why the Sun is the ruler of this kind of astrological influence. And so as the planets do their vortexes, equally in the shape of the Sun, and they are also making their cones. They are also contracting and expanding, and so they also have what's called exaltations. So in astrology, the Sun exalts here in the sign of Aries. You can see why, can't you? Because from the inner northern, so-called northern hemisphere, the inner circle on this flat plane, flat disk Earth, what was the point I was making? I've just forgotten the point.
Okay, the Sun is exalting, and then the outer ring.
Good. Okay. So the Sun exalts here, and Saturn exalts here in Libra. Saturn and the Sun. Jupiter exalts here, and Mars exalts here. So we've got Saturn over here, the Sun, the four big boys. They all exalt at the four tropical signs. Aries, number 1, Cancer, number 4, Libra, number 7, and Capricorn, the 10th sign. So what we learn from this, why does the Sun exalt in Aries? Why doesn't it exalt in Taurus? Or why doesn't it exalt in Sagittarius? Well, there's no exalting in this part of the cone. It can only exalt here when the days, from this point on, from March the 21st on, the sun exalts because the sun now produces longer days and shorter nights in what's called the so-called northern hemisphere, the inner circle. And so it exalts because it has exalted over the darkness and the long nights of the colder, wintry portion of this cone. Jupiter, on the other hand, exalts up in Cancer because Jupiter, what does Jupiter do? Well, he expands. And so now he begins to expand this cone. Saturn is cold. So he exalts here because he's the Lord of darkness. And here the nights are longer than the days, whereas the days were longer here. So Saturn, the ruler of darkness, exalts here, and the sun. So this is Horus and Horus and Set, Jesus and Satan. Now remembering, please remember that these are archetypes. Archetypally, that's Jesus. But the Jesus that we refer to, that is the Saviour of the world, this is the Paramatma. This is Vishnu. It's the super soul. Jesus is the super soul. Christ, on the other hand, is the Creator. They are two different things, Jesus and Christ. They're not the same thing. And then, of course, Mars. Well, why does Mars exalt here? Why would Mars exalt in Capricorn? Well, because Mars backwards is Ram, yeah?
Yeah.
And of course, Mars is also the ruler of Aries. The Sun exalts in Aries, but Mars is the ruler of Aries. So Mars has always been associated with the ram. And so here in Capricorn, you've got a goat and a ram. Both of them. Both symbols of climbing are found in Capricorn. Mars exalts in Capricorn, the ram, and the goat, the mountain climber, is domiciled in Capricorn. And both of those animals are symbols of climbing. And so when the sun gets to Cancer, here you have a crab or a scarab in Egyptian, the sign, the other animal that belongs in Cancer. Because, see, the scarab, or the scrab, the crab, the scarab climbs up the dung hill, with the hill with his dung, and then he rolls it down the hill again. Then he goes up again, and as he goes, it accumulates and grows like a snowball effect. You see? And so that crab is a sideways walking animal. And in other words, what that means is when the sun gets up here to the top, it seems to totter. It seems to stop on the horizon at the solstices. On the horizon, there's no movement of the sun for 3 days. So the sun is entombed for 3 days. That's Jesus being entombed. In particular down here on the 21st of December, when Christmas occurs. You see, here is the tropical point where the sun is cold in winter, and the sun stops on the horizon again, once again, as it does in Cancer, twice. And actually, it is noticed to stop also at the equinoxes. So something amazing happens here for the sun to appear to stop on the horizon, just as it does in Cancer and Capricorn. And you notice that these are all the 4 big boys of astrology, because the other 3 planets, Moon, Venus, and Mercury, they are all below the heaven of the sun. It's called a heaven or a sphere, because all of these 7 planets, they all rule a sphere. And as our souls come down from the Tropic of Cancer, where this is the gate, the portal of men, and this is the portal of the gods, well, very appropriately, Saturn is here. Saturn is here, and that's the scythe of Saturn. He is the ruler. He's the Grim Reaper. Of course, this is the portal of gods. This is the portal of men. And so Leo would be somewhere here on the way down, and this is where the Holy Grail, the cup of Lethe, or the bowl of Bacchus is, where we drink as our souls descend into matter, and we get intoxicated and we forget our divinity from our source. We're disconnected from cause. And so this knowledge, guys, this knowledge is the science of astrologos, the word of the astro, and God is light. So it's the word of God. There's no doubt about that. The Indians call astrology Jyotish, and Jyotish means the science of light. So why would we be interested in the science of light? So that we can get to know the Creator. Well, because the material mind of the Creator is manifesting all things through light and sound. It's simple. It's all orchestrated by light and sound. Those stars in the heavens, those are the God's cells of the mind of God, the Creator. And they are giving to us soul and spirit, as Macrobius said, as we read. And so it is through this science that we are able to understand universal mind thinking, to be able to comprehend universal mind knowing. Okay, guys, so we are going to build on that weekly in these calls. The purpose of these calls will be to merge geocentrism with syncretism, with astrology, and true transcendental science. My goal here is to have participation as well. I'm not just going to be the only one presenting here. I'm inviting you guys to do presentations here as well. You can do 10-minute, 20-minute, half-an-hour presentations for the purpose of furthering our understanding of the cosmos. Okay, so that we're not forever groping in the darkness in opinion, and so that we may know, and we may know correctly the science. All right, guys, let's shoot away some questions then, eh?
Yeah. I think someone had a question. Maybe, maybe not. My question for you, Santos, was it's kind of not really off topic, but you were talking about the golden age in many of your presentations, and when exactly was that? It's called something else in Hindu cosmology, but I was just wondering, like, when that actually was and for how long that was.
Yeah, look, whilst I'm answering that, I'm going to try and find the answer from this book for you. This is just exquisite. This is volume 1 of the same book I read from before, and I do recommend that these books are top shelf of your library. It's just, I don't know what I would have done without these books, really. But in here, it talks about the Golden Age. Now, in the Hindu system, this is called the Satya Yuga. Sat means existence, time, goodness, truth, Saturn. And so the Satya Yuga is the Golden Age. Then below the Golden Age comes the Treta Yuga. Treta means 3, the third age, because the Satya is the 4th. So the Treta Yuga is the 3rd age, and it is silver. And then the second age is Dvapara Yuga. I'll write that down. And that is the Bronze Age. And so Satya Yuga or Yug. It's actually pronounced Yug. And then you've got Treta, Yug, and Dvapara. Oh, what am I doing? That's a B. Yeah. I think that's how you spell it. D-W-A-P-A-R. Dvapara. And of course, we just came out of the Kali Yuga. So this is your gold, your silver, your bronze, and your iron age. So we've just come out of this age, and we've popped into this age, according to...
Thank God.
Let's see, where is he? Sri Yukteswar. Somewhere around here I've got his book, but I mean, you would have seen it in my presentations many times. Sri Yukteswar is... Yeah, he says we've gone into the Dvapara Yuga, the second age, but the Hare Krishnas and other there's discrepancy because the Hare Krishnas teach that we've been in the golden age since the Renaissance, since the incarnation. Yeah, since the incarnation of Lord Sri Chaitanya, around the Renaissance time. Now, this reincarnation would be, well, to me, it's transcendental history. I don't see it as literal mundane history. And so, and this is why when they say Jesus came to the earth 2,000 years ago, what it's describing is transcendental history. And it's explaining that the Christ consciousness returned to us at that time. And so around about the Renaissance, we have actually been in the golden age. And because our minds have returned to the same capability. So if only the controllers and the parasites weren't on this realm, the infestation of demons that are teaching the doctrines of demons, we would be well and truly in the golden age right now.
Yeah.
I'll try and find that bit about the golden age in here for you too. Shoot away any other questions, guys. If you have any questions, now's the time.
Yeah, it's just one for me. Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Just with Aristotle, was he not a follower of any Hermeticism or any call? He obviously wasn't if he was sense-based. He based a lot of his philosophy on sense, going against Plato's, of course, everything is an illusion. Is he not a follower of Hermeticism? Was he not a follower? Did he not? Was it not a popular idea, or was he trying to change something? Or, I mean, it's a hard question to answer because we're not there, of course. But
we're not there.
His teachings are completely different to what Hermetics teach.
Yeah, they are, Eden. There was a big fall in consciousness around that time. Really,
Right.
That's when the Bronze Age ended, and your Pythagoras's and your Plato's, they were still in that mindset, that higher mind, and they received all of their wisdom from. They went to Egypt, they went to India. Aristotle did not. So they were instructed in the secret doctrines and that were kept, and so they were of a different school, transcendental theological, transcendental science. Aristotle parted company with Plato. They had an argument. And he went off and founded the peripatetic school, which is the wandering philosophers as they go wandering around the cinder tracks, you see. And so, sorry, I just opened the door. It's getting very hot in here. And so, very hot. And so, there started the materialist school. This is where everything material and speculative and empirical began with Aristotle. Sense-based. Yeah. And so they start, because the Iron Age was heavily upon us at that time. The Iron Age has been very brutal to our memory. And so probably Aristotle was, sincere, probably he was a good man, but his philosophy was pure materialism. And so there's two schools, guys. There's two schools, and there always will be in material worlds. There's the materialist, speculative, which comes from detachment from the Creator, no meditation, no spiritual will or desire, and just speculative intellect going wild. And then there's the transcendental, who are ones who are learned in the true doctrines. And the Bible, you won't get better than this, guys. Look at Genesis. I mean, I remember I used to read Genesis chapter 1, and I used to laugh at some of the models of creation. But now I realise that this book had it right, and Copernicus basically came along to ridicule this book. Copernicus and his demon ball, demon globe, and gravity is basically there to make this book insignificant. And this book is not insignificant. I've shown in all my presentations that this is the book of all books. It is divine, and it has been divinely inspired. Not in the sense that, Habakkuk and Isaiah were sitting there penning it frantically under the direct inspiration of some God transmitting through his mind. Not like that. In the sense that in the Golden Age, this was old hat. This was stuff we knew. It's like we are so comfortable and knowledgeable about how electricity works, but 400 years ago, we were not. Different age, different intelligence, different science, different period. And so these books were written in a far different period, where we penned them with our divine intelligence, not with our animal intelligence. You see, so all of these philosophers, your Descartes and all of these materialist, speculative philosophers, they all belong to that materialistic school, where they try to explain things from these eyes, looking up and giving a material origin to all things, and not seeing the true underlying causes, which are spiritual and transcendental. They can't see them. So really, the ball and the globe is good for the buffoons. It's great because they cannot switch over into transcendental spiritual and to grasp the true nature of the cosmos.
Yeah.
It's a material model, and it works for them. See, Santa Claus works for 3-year-old children. It doesn't work for someone in their 60s or 70s. They laugh at it. Why? Because their perspective has changed. Not that they don't practice anything to do with Santa Claus. They've got the same, the tree there and everything, and they understand it has spiritual significance, and it has, more wisdom underlying the story than what meets the eye. And so they continue to celebrate this wonderful celebration because it has to do with the winter, and it has to do with the cycles of nature. You see? Some people will disagree with this, and they'll say, oh, any kind of study of nature, astronomy, astrology, alchemy, and it's all demon worship. They don't understand that we have to use what we've got in order to understand what we have lost and what we haven't got at the moment. Mm-hmm. And that is the languages that we have.
Yes.
Astrology, it's a language. No serious astrologer believes in astrology. Doesn't have to. You just have to know it. I don't believe in English, I just know it. And so I'm using the language. And so you guys don't believe in English. And you're communicating with me and you understand it. So it's about understanding this language of lights, Jyotish, the science of light. So in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, it says, "And God went on to say, let luminaries come to be in the expanse." That's the firmament. This is the Jehovah's Witness Bible, by the way. "In the expanse of heaven, to make a division between light, day and night. And they must serve as signs for seasons and for days and years." So how about that? God says that the sun and the moon must serve for signs, for seasons, for days, for months and weeks and years. Well, are we paying attention to those signs? The Bible is telling us that He put them there. Those luminaries are there. They are gods. So God put gods, angels, archangels, in the heavens for us. And they are the circuit board of the heavens, the firmament, the expanse that it speaks about here. And then it goes on to say, "And they must serve as luminaries in the expanse of the heavens, to shine upon the earth. And it came to be so. And God proceeded to make the two great luminaries, the greater luminary for dominating the day, and the lesser luminary for dominating the night, and also the stars." The stars are angels. That translation is not correct, stars. There's only 5 stars in the sky, and they are the wandering stars we call planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, Mercury. And the sun and the moon, they are different. They are luminaries. And then the stars that we call stars, those are angels. Those are angels.
It's right here. I just have a question about that further. When we're done with this body and we die, you've talked about this before, we first go to the moon, and then we need to sort of pass through that first gate of heaven, and then we move to whatever's next, Mercury, Venus, and we go through these stages of being able to transcend up to the Creator. Can you speak a bit more about that and how, what each star is that we have to have learned in this lifetime to be able to transcend to the next stage, or what that is, or do you have a document or a book?
Yeah, and remind me, Summer, to, because I won't be able to find that about the Golden Age. Remind me during the week for next week, because that'll be really good for next week. Good question, Ryan. Great question. I'm going to read from both 4th century and 2nd century. This is Ptolemy in the Tetrabiblios, and this is Macrobius. And this is what he says about the 7. And as you can see, that's the nature. It's not very clear there, but there are 7 rings outside of the Earth, the circle of the Earth, and all those 7 planets. First the Moon, then Mercury, then Venus. They are the inferior 3, under the Sun, and then the Sun is in the middle, and then the 3 big boys above that. So you've got Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And those 7, they are portals. And we have to get out of this concentric onion-like cosmos. And you can't do that just by wishing and hoping.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do what Firmicus said. We must be chaste and pure and clean. And we must be moral, and we must be sober, and we must be good, and we must appreciate beauty, and we must have divine practices, because then we will have the currency of the realm. When you go to the moon, you need money. When you go to that's the moons, and this is what it's telling us. That's why all of our money comes from the 7.
Well, on stars, we can't go any further on reincarnated as moon stars.
Say again?
If we're not of pure spirit, the first gate of heaven being the moon, I think I've heard you talk about this. If we're not of pure spirit, we can't next level being Mercury, then we just bring contact back down from the moon as moon stars, mod stars. Does that ring a bell for you?
Perfect. Spot on. This is why we have such words in our vocabulary, such as demon, monster. That's a moon star, a deity of the moon, demon. And this is what money. This is where money comes from. Money comes from money, demonism. Monetization and demonization are the same word.
Democracy.
And demon crazy. This is why many great ones like Thomas Jefferson hated democracy and said it is mob rule. The mob will rule through it, and they rule through money, money. And so when you go to the moon, you need money. When you go to Mercury, you need merchandise, money. When you go to Venus, you need dollars, doll, from doll. Venus is the doll, and the Isis. That's what Isis is. The doll of the dollar. Isis is the doll of the heavens. And then the sun is gold. So when you go to the sun, have you got any gold? You remember Led Zeppelin's song, and she's buying a stairway to heaven? And then when you get to Mars, Mars is the root of market. Mars, the market. See, all of these orbs, moon, money, Mercury, merchandise, Venus, the dollar, gold, and bronze, copper. Copper is her element. And what do you have in your pocket? Yeah, well, you've got copper and brass money. Silver money, the moon. Gold money, the sun. Jupiter. Well, who's Jupiter's consort? Juno. And what did they make in the temple of Juno in Rome? Money. That's where all coins were stamped, in the temple of Juno, the consort of Jupiter. And Saturn? How is Saturn involved with money? Well, Saturn is lead, you know, and it's another metal, and these metals are precious metals. And so the metal indicates the value, and it also indicates the currency. So when we go to these realms, do we have the alchemical currency? You don't want to go there with gold in your pockets. You can't. You have to have gold in your soul. This is why, you know, we have to buy our stairway to heaven. And so this is what Macrobius says about how we get down through the seven heavens, our soul, and each time we come down, we get clothed with a vestment that each planet bestows upon us, and that vestment is a condition. So Saturn, in the sphere of Saturn, the soul obtains reason and understanding called logistikon, which is logistical, logic, logistikon in Greek, and theoretikon, theory, how to theorize. In Jupiter's sphere, which is the second, the power to act, called praktikon, practice, practice, praktikon. I mean, that's, see, many of our English words come from Greek, you see. So in Mars, a bold spirit, thymikon. In the sun spheres, sense perception. So the sun gives us sense perception and imagination. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And the word there is aesthetikon, aesthetics.
That's
Aesthetic.
Venus, isn't it?
No, Venus is the sphere of impulse and passion, which is epithymetikon. Epithymetikon.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And in Mercury's sphere, the ability to speak and interpret. Hermeneutikon, hermeneutics. And in the lunar sphere, the function of moulding and increasing bodies. Phytikon. And so,
Oh, sorry,
when we go
sorry, mate.
Yeah,
What was Saturn? What was Saturn's? Because there's always a lot of negativity brought towards Saturn. Always negative. Or now there's always a lot of negativity. But Saturn must give off some goodness as well, you know. And we never hear about that. I just never hear about it anyway. What's a lot of the positive things towards Saturn then?
the positive things of Saturn is completeness and maturity. He is the old man.
Right.
And so his ring...
He encompasses all.
Yeah. All the archetypes are in Saturn.
Right.
This is why everybody serves Saturn, because we all acknowledge time, and we're all existing in this temporal is time, tempo.
Yep.
So it's a temporal place that therefore Saturn rules. He's the ruler because of time.
Right.
And so even Firmicus mentions this, as he says, the world is divided into two parts, the elemental region and the ethereal. The elemental region is constantly subject to alteration and comprises the four elements, earth, water, air, and fire. The ethereal region, which philosophers call the fifth essence, the quintessence, encompasses by its concavity the elemental. The elemental. Its substance remains always unvaried and consists of 10 spheres, of which the greater one always spherically environs the next smaller, and so on in consecutive order. Remember, we live inside a sphere, not on a sphere. Well, it's 10 of them. 10 concentric circles. And this is how he describes them. First, therefore, around the sphere of fire, God, the creator of the world, and notice how they refer to God. I mean, Macrobius. These are all astrologers, guys. The true science of God is astrology, not in the churches. They've forgotten the true science. They're not teaching. The pastors are not teaching about the Astors. The ministers are not teaching about the moon and the stars. First, therefore, around the sphere of fire, God, the creator of the world, placed the sphere of the moon, then that of Mercury, then that of Venus, then that of the Sun, and afterwards those of Mars, Jupiter, and of Saturn. That's always the order. Each of these spheres, however, contains but one star, and these stars, in passing through the zodiac, always struggle against the primum mobile. So the primum mobile is the first motion. It is the outer 10th sphere, okay? Or motion of the 10th sphere. Well, there you go. He said it. Yeah. They are also entirely luminous. Entirely luminous. Please remember this, guys. There's no terrestrial, material, physical stars out there. They're all luminous. NASA is really just a crock of an organization. The sooner we get rid of it, the sooner we will be living in peace. Because they teach demon worship, pure. And the stars, in passing through the zodiac, always struggle against the primum mobile, or the motion of the 10th sphere. They are also entirely luminous. In the next place follows the firmament, which is the 8th or starry sphere, and which trembles or vibrates in two small circles at the beginning of Aries and Libra, as placed in the 9th sphere. This motion is called by astronomers the motion of the axis and recess of the fixed stars. probably in order to account for precession of the equinoxes. This is surrounded by the ninth sphere, called the crystalline or watery heaven, because no star is discovered in it. This is not true. Neptune is the star of the watery crystalline heaven. Just as Uranus is the star in the starry heavens. Uranus controls the firmament. He's the ruler of the firmament. And his orbit is 84 years, right? 12 times 84 is 1,008. Please pay attention to that number, 108. So 12 revolutions of Uranus rounds out to 1,000 years, 1,008. So 24 round out to 2,000 years, or 2,016 years. These are precessional numbers. They are beautiful precessional numbers. So Uranus is the ruler of all time. Let me continue. Lastly, the primum mobile, styled also the 10th sphere, encompasses all the before-mentioned ethereal spheres, and is continually turned upon the poles of the world. By one revolution in 24 hours from the east through the meridian to the west, again coming round to the east. At the same time, it rolls all the inferior spheres around with it, by its own force. And there is no star in it. Yes, there is. It's Pluto. Against this primum mobile, the motion of the other spheres running from the west through the meridian to the east contends. Whatever is beyond this is fixed and immovable, and the professors of our orthodox faith affirm it to be the empyrean heaven, which God inhabits with the elect. The elect. And that's you and I.
So Santos,
Oh, wait, go ahead.
do you believe, why did we come here? Did we come here to experience the full pendulum of duality, or did we come here to actually bring this place back into the golden age?
Yeah, good question, Hakan. Our work is to do the good work. We didn't come here to do jobs, just over broke. We came here to do the Grand Arcanum, the work of sublimating all of what's here and vibrating it to a much, much higher vibration.
Right.
So
in essence, the way I see it, I had this revelation, I had this epiphany this year, just stepping out into my yard, and I felt like that this is the Garden of Eden.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it has been perverted and completely turned around. And what do all the other souls, billions of souls, what did they come here to do? Are we all here to fulfill the same purpose?
Sorry, guys, I'm just looking out for visitors coming. That's down the road, so that's why I'm not. Yeah, there's two kinds of souls, Hakim. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. There's two kinds of souls, brother. There's souls that are reincarnating continually by refusing to acknowledge the Creator and have been punished in this place. And there are souls who have been sent here to help them. And these are, you know, ascended ones, ascended masters and great teachers, your Platos, your Pythagoras's, and all of these great teachers who don't really do the same kind of reincarnating over and over again, but they have a special purpose. So there's according to the Hermetica, there are ones who have been sent deliberately to do this good work of saving others, and there are others who have come against their wish and who have been forced to come here of that group, and then there's the other ones who are just plain old asleep and who have no desire to come to the light. They have no desire to break away from pseudoscience, and demon worship, and to worship demons.
That kind of tied into my question too, because I won't really go into it, but just like past lives and stuff, and being able to see things from the past and stuff, and like you have said, you know, maybe you haven't said this exactly, but I remember Eilish in one of your interviews with her. She had said she saw visions of you and when you were teaching in those times, and I had seen the same thing, not visually, but it was a knowing, and personal experiences myself. And it's like if we came back in the day to help people, and we're still here, that's where like my question is with that, because I guess our mission isn't done yet. If that's even a question. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to say that.
No, but it's a good thought, sister. Thanks. It's a very good thought. When do we get to go back to Godhead?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big question. Who knows? Our work is to continue heads down, nose down, chin up, always, never wavering from the path, and helping to bring the balance back. Mm-hmm. Somehow, the microcosm affects the macrocosm, and so as we improve and as we get better internally, out there gets better. I mean, I see this on a daily level. You know, when I'm not right and I'm angry or not focused, then it just seems that the world is matching that. It just matches it. You know, energy for energy. It's just exactly the same. But when you overcome all of this weakness that we have, there's so much, you know, material weakness, and you do some growing, then you see externally in the world that growing has taken place too. It's a beautiful place. There is only beauty. Only beauty exists, really. Even though, you know, there is ugliness in things like, you know, some of the things we see in the world, like rubbish tips and sewers and wars and things like that. In our unconditioned temporal, unconditioned everlasting state, these things are insignificant. You know, they come and go. These are just events in history, in the past, which one day eventually will have no significance at all in the eternal now. And so our work is to bring back the balance. We've got to balance the good and the evil, what they call the good and the evil. So in this dualistic plane, and that's what we're doing. We're balancing all things.
What's really astounding, and thank you for this, right on, what's really astounding is that even in the darkest times, there have been individuals who have been living in complete bliss. In my observation, if a specific level of minimum consciousness has not been hit, suffering is inevitable, and if someone goes beyond that through deep inner work, suffering is no longer needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just from my experience, I find that the message is always there. It's there. Godhead is there. It's just a matter of recognizing it, and that's only comes through, you know, knowledge and experience. That's what I find. As you said, even in the darkest corner, there's a light always burning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
So
will
I think
always
it's always
be
with
one.
us.
Mm-hmm.
We are now waking up. We are now learning. It's just just us here now talking is setting our minds going. And people are going to watch this. This sets minds going. That's all you need. And these ideas are coming through, and it's and you can see it every day. And I even feel it. But just seeing, you know, the social media and so on, people are, you know, starting to come around, and that fire is burning, and it's burning big. I've noticed. That's what I've noticed anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. Yeah. Small things change all things.
Yes.
Yep. Small steps. Small steps, just progress every day. Change the diet, improve the diet, improve the quality of meditation, improve the mind, not agitate the mind. Certain foods agitate the mind. Alcohol agitates the mind. Garlic, onions, mushrooms. These are foods that in Ayurvedic science are to be limited as much as possible because they agitate the mind. And anything that agitates the mind is unholy, unhealthy. Healthy, holy, same word. Comes from halos, comes from salt. The Greek word for salt, salvation, or salud in Spanish, which is health, is just that. Health, halo. And halos is salt. And so another thing that we really need to intake is salt. Good salt, Celtic sea salt, Himalayan salt, and just drink it. Salt is electrical charge. That's one way to get healthy and put minerals in the body.
Which in fact is also one of the reasons why they have introduced all that processed salt, which is so harmful.
It is.
Death.
Salt on steroids, I call it. The same with sugar. There's no sugar anymore. It's a composite of something they've made, but it's like sugar on steroids.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Electric.
Well, go on.
No, I said just electric foods. Dr. Sebi, research him if you haven't already.
Exactly. Dr. Sebi, I like Dr. Robert Young. He's pretty good. He speaks about just the 4 essential requirements, which are good water, alkaline super water, salt, and he likes both of the salts that I've mentioned. Chlorophyll, which is my green smoothie here. See that green? The molecular structure of that green is exactly the same as your blood. So the more of these green smoothies that you put into you, the more healthy your blood will be. And to purify the blood is to purify the soul. And the other thing is oils, good oils, extra virgin olive oil. I like Dr. Robert Young. I think and he looks healthy. He's in his 60s and he's just radiant. He's like, in his 30s. So the proof is in the pudding. Same with Dr. Sebi. With Dr. Sebi, it's a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more limiting because he's isolated so many hybrid plants that you just begin to despair when you see the list of all the foods that have been tampered with by man. And so I discovered Sebi years ago and rigorously tried to follow his diet, and I still do. Keep it in mind always, but I think if we keep it simple, just try and get the chlorophyll in there. Sometimes you may have to use hybrid plants because that's all that's accessible where you live, and other times you may not be able to get organic stuff. Well, that's fine. Wash your fruit and vegetables in water and salt and apple cider vinegar or whatever. Clean them off of their chemicals and just eat them. It's better to just eat them raw and not ask too many questions if you can't afford to buy organic. Just wash the food and enjoy raw foods. And if you can't, a lot of people can't eat just raw. Then they still need cooked. That's fine. I eat a bit of cooked food. I had some today, but I'm pumping it at about 70% raw, and every now and then I'll have something nice and cooked, but organic and clean and healthy, which I put my love into it, and prepare it myself, and sing and chant to the music and raise the vibration of it. It's always important to offer the food to the universe, to the Creator first.
Ayurveda, we actually do recommend a specific portion of cooked foods, not overcooked but cooked, just because as you know, plants have antibodies too, and what you do if you eat raw for a long time, you can diminish your body internal enzymatic production over time. But yes, these are the prerequisites: clean water, and also there was a note from, I believe, Angela, organic sulfur, MSM.
Yes.
Organic sulfur?
Yeah.
Yep, I had my pass on to Angela that I had my MSN this morning with grapefruit juice to activate it, and I've been having MSM ever since she gifted me a big 2-kilo pack of it. Thank you, Angela.
I'll tell her for you, Santos.
I totally want to know more about that, but I actually wanted to ask you a question about the chlorophyll because I guess it came to me yesterday, and I was thinking, I was like, I haven't had my dosage of chlorophyll ever since I found out about Dr. Sebi, because all the chlorophyll I was getting was spirulina and just all the stuff that was made in a lab, so I kind of just gave it away. But I've just been thinking lately because my body just has been telling me. So I was just wondering what do you think is the best option for chlorophyll, like in the best quality or quantity, or not quantity, but just to be able to get it daily.
May I give you a quick suggestion in that regard, which I found to be really, really easy, is Oceans Alive phytoplankton, which is a super clean product and which is packed with chlorophyll and all micronutrients this earth has to offer. It's quite phenomenal how great this product is. It's by Activation Products. It's called Ocean Alive Phytoplankton. You might want to look into it.
Thank you.
Hey, can you please, thank you, Hakan, can you please put a link in there into the chat of that? Is that too much to ask, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
like,
go ahead.
No, you go. I've spoken enough.
I was just going to actually go kind of back on topic, but kind of not, about just your opinion, because you know the Bible back and front, up and down, and in all places. So I was going to ask you about the prophecy of like the stars falling out of the sky, because I've personally not seen that, but I've seen pieces of the sky falling from the sky in dreams that I've had long time ago, before I even knew about the flat Earth or anything like that. And I was always wondering, I'm like, what is that? Why did that happen? And just like, just really prophecy, because I've actually heard a prophetic song that was talking about the stars falling out of the sky, all except 7 or something like that. So I just wanted to know, like, your opinion on that.
Yeah, look, that's a very unusual prophecy. I remember that from when I was a little boy, and the stars that transgressed the order of the Lord, and they fell, and the devil dragged 1/3 of the stars of heaven, and they fell from their original place, and this is an offensive behavior. This can be interpreted and understood on a few levels. And one of the levels is definitely that those stars are angels and they serve the Creator. And some of them actually fall. They do fall. They do leave their original post, their original service post, and they commit the sin of falling. And their souls do fall onto this plane, and they do manifest as demons. And hence, your George Bushes and your Hillary Clintons. I always use those two because they are the most, in my opinion, they are the most symbolic of the demon. They really, really personify and epitomize the demon, the Nephilim that have infested this plane. And a lot of them come from those stars. They are stars, fallen stars. They are Nephilim, literally. And so this is where mythology does describe literal things. It really does. But the other interpretation is one that I've often presented in my presentations, and that is the sidereal precessional slippage of the stars. You see, there are two motions in the solar system. There's the tropical Western system that I teach. It's tropical, based on the tropics. And there's the sidereal. Now,
You're right. Something like that. Or real? Yeah.
Yeah. These stars, that's what they should be called. The stars in the firmament are these. They're not stars. There's only 5 stars. Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and Mercury. Those are the only 5 stars up there. These are Sidereal. These in Latin, these are different, and so their motion is different to the sun's ecliptic. You know, we saw the sun's path. That's the ecliptic. This is the path that the sun makes, and each time it does one revolution of 24 hours, it's basically well, these are all 24-hour days. There's 365 of these, and there's only 360 of these. So the sun is doing 365 of these, and the firmament is only doing 360 revolutions, and there's a differential. And I've always hunched, I may be wrong, but I've always hunched that that's what the Bible means, that the stars, because there's something has happened. The sun is supposed to actually do 360 well, what days, rotations every year, the same as the firmament, because the firmament is like a chandelier and it's turning around and around, right? It's spinning around and around every day once, and it does 360 of those. And so there's a differential there. So the sun is opposed to the firmament. There is friction going on. They're not balanced. 360 here, 365 and a quarter there. This is not right. Something has happened to the sun. The sun is not comfortable in this 365-day year. And this is only a recent thing. It hasn't been doing this for a long time. There is records suggesting, clearly suggesting that the year used to be 360 days, exactly in sync with the sidereal firmament. And so that's another way of seeing that scripture.
What do you think, what does a firmament consist of? Is it just energetic in nature, or do you think it's actually crystal form?
I don't know. I don't know. A lot of guys say that it's firm, hence firmament, just as the Earth is called terra firma. Terra firma means firm, not moving. So the firmament could be of some kind of glassy, crystalline substance, or it could just be energy, like intense light energy, and it has like a toroidal shape to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in my dream it was really weird because it was falling out in hexagonal shapes. And if you've ever seen like solar roadways, I don't know if anyone's ever seen or heard of that. It kind of looked like that, and it was like, but it was like pieces. I was like, so it didn't make sense because I know it's not like some man-made thing. I know it's definitely divine and made out of something that even nukes can't penetrate. I mean, you see on YouTube all the time of them trying to blow it up, and they can't. So.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's what all the bombing is all about. They this is the materialist mind of man, the technical aberration of their material science, that they will actually do harm to the creation just to advance their materialistic pseudoscience, and they will send bombs up there.
Excuse me. It almost seems like that they declared war against the Creator.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. How's this? This is the war that they have that they have declared against the Creator. Psalm chapter 2. Don't know how many times I used to read this at the doorstep of the unbelievers. Yeah. Why have the nations been in tumult? and the national groups themselves keep muttering an empty thing. Wow, does that make sense to me now?
Yeah.
So why have the nations been in tumult? They're tumultuous. Why? Why? There's no need. There's no need for us to oppose the Creator. We should just surrender. Why don't we just surrender to creation and all the beautiful forces and trust in the Creator? If the Creator is capable of giving us life and making such a beautiful cosmos, He is capable of anything. Anything. So why are we tumultuous? Why are the nations tumultuous? Why do they keep uttering an empty thing? The kings of the earth take their stand. The high officials themselves have massed together as one against Jehovah. All right, I've tried to avoid this, but I'm going to have to put my $1 magnifying glasses on. Sorry, guys, because look what I'm reading. That's what I'm reading. I'm reading that. This is sacrilege what I've done to my Bible, man, but everywhere. So against Jehovah and against his anointed one, that would be Jesus, Vishnu, saying, let us tear their bands apart and cast their cords away from us. See, this is what your George Bushes would be saying. They'd be saying, let us tear the bands, the Creator's bands apart. Let's get rid of anything to do with the Creator, and let's just promote and divulge demonic teachings like the gravity globe, meat-eating, satanic teachings. The very one sitting in the heavens will laugh. Jehovah himself will hold them in derision. At that time he will speak to them in his anger, and in his hot displeasure he will disturb them, saying, even I, have installed my king upon Zion, my holy mountain. Let me refer to the decree of Jehovah. He has said to me, you are my son. I today have become your father. Ask of me that I may give nations as your inheritance, and the ends of the earth, as your possession. You will break them with an iron scepter. As though a potter's vessel, you will dash them to pieces. And now, O kings, exercise insight. Let yourselves be corrected, O judges of the earth. Serve Jehovah with fear and with joyful trembling. Kiss the Son, that he may not become incensed, and you may not perish from the way. For his anger flares up easily. Happy are all those taking refuge in him. Her, Radharani, the goddess, Mary, the Queen of Heavens, it's the same thing. Happy are those who take refuge in that one. Why do we need to be tumultuous? Surrender from the heart.
The fact is, within the beautiful creation of equilibrium, if you go by the natural laws she has given us, we never really run into problems, even physically, and they have perverted everything to such an extent that you don't even find any more healthy people around in the so-called civilization. This is how deep this this perversion has gone.
It is, Hakan, and this is why little old me over here is sharing my private time with social media and interviews and so forth, because I can't rest if that is going on, and you can't either. That's why you're here. So our souls are disturbed by the disturbance of these demonic forces that have infested this plane, and we have to honor the Creator by giving glory to the Creator and by not turning our heads and following in their ways. Do not go with the crowd. Better to walk alone than with a crowd that is going in the wrong direction.
Agreed.
Yep.
And so, you know, I have to sacrifice. I mean, I live in the perfect place in a rainforest where I could just be blissing out and tiptoeing through the pastures with there's kangaroos everywhere, there's beautiful birds singing all the time, there's hundreds of different birds, there's animals everywhere, there's I've got 2 rivers just 15 metres from my cottage. I've got one river which is a tributary to the Mary River, which is one of Australia's great rivers, and then just 30 metres over that way is the Mary River, and it's one of the most beautiful rivers. And I could just, I don't know, forget the world and all of their troubles and stay in paradise. But how can you? You just can't.
Well, I was able to when I still bought the New Age bullshit, but after I saw through the New Age bullshit deception, see, New Age makes you really nice and sit back, and you're like, you know what? Everybody creates what they want to create, yada yada, la da la. But you know what? There is no sitting still. Yes, you could sit still for like a lifetime and have a little life in bliss, but these problems, they need to be addressed.
Yeah. And all of these Mayavadis, teachers of Maya, the delusion, the illusion, they're all promoting, on the one hand, your New Agers are preaching prosperity consciousness, and you can have Ferraris, and you should be materially wealthy and bountiful, and you should enjoy everything in material nature. Sure, we shouldn't you know, be necessarily suffering when everything is in balance, but it's not the time for prosperity consciousness. And then on the other hand, oh, love and light, and what is, and you can't, you know, affect a change, and just have to accept that it is, and it is, and don't worry, and you will, you know, all things will correct with this wonderful, you know,
That is
super.
You'll find those people will be the first ones to throw a knife in your face if you what's to say, come in conflict with them with that idea. They preach peace, but yet if you argue with it, they'll throw that hand in there or that fist in your face and say, no! It's crazy.
Well, again, I don't believe that the New Age religion was actually put out by coincidence. It's a very, very smart move within the chessboard, and they have done a great job to divert people into that little realm of delusion, illusion, where they just stand down and basically just accept the faith for whatever it is. And that is, of course, what they intended, and they have done an amazing, amazing job. Hence, people like Eckhart Tolle with The Power of Now, see, they always take a little bit of truth and then they pervert it. And of course, there's only now, but he says just stay in the now. It doesn't really matter. Sit on the park bench and look out the window.
Yeah, look, I discovered Eckhart Tolle around about 2003, 2004, and of course I've moved on, obviously, but I was very thankful because it changed. I was still a Jehovah's Witness back then, and if I didn't have what he taught, and then of course I discovered Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, and all of these other gurus.
Right.
Now, of course, I don't need anything that they've got to say, anything at all. Anything. Yeah, because because I guess they have their purpose. I guess they're somehow they're waking up some individuals from some kind of trauma and ignorance and materialism, and it sets them on the path. I have absolutely no grudge against the churches or the Jehovah's Witness. I'm thankful that I was Jehovah's Witness for 30 years. I'm so thankful. I was so zealous. I got to know this book, which is precious and teaches divine wisdom. And I got to know many, many other things. I got to know the faiths of many, many people because I knocked on the door of Jews. I knocked on the door of Islamists. I got to learn so much, and I'm thankful. There's no grudge. Even though it's an organization of, you know, well, there's pedophilia in that organization. There's mind control in that organization. They teach the Copernican globe, which is demonism. They collect blood money, Rothschild Federal Reserve notes in their contribution boxes and their donation boxes. And they don't teach anyone about the Vatican-owned legal name, which is the mark of the beast, and it is the false idols, and all of the Jehovah's Witnesses are using that legal name, not knowing that they are going surety, which Proverbs and Psalms and all the scriptures tell you never to go surety for anyone. And so even though they still fail and flunk in all of those areas, it's like they still provide a service. You know, like kindergarten is, you'd never go back to kindergarten now, but you did go through it. And so you learnt what you had to learn there. It's like a tunnel. A tunnel is not for you to go into to stay. A tunnel is for you to go into to get the hell out the other side. And that's exactly what churches are. Churches are like a boot camp, and they slap you around, and they teach you all of these modalities which are very childish and basic, which if you are good-hearted, you will take to the next plane in your next baptism. You see, the body is the baptism of earth. The Christian church baptizes you with water. Then when you get out of there, you get baptized with spirit, because the spirit comes upon you. And then the final baptism is the baptism of fire. So you've gone through the 4 elements, and you've cleansed the previous element. So when your car's dirty, you don't wash it with fire, you don't wash it with air, you wash it with water, because water cleans earth. And if you've got impurities in your body, well, you go under the water, you have a shower, and you bless yourself with water and light, and you cleanse yourself. It cleanses, and you feel refreshed after a shower. But then if you have other issues like we all have our own demons, so we have demons. How to get rid of those? Well, that's the spiritual baptism, and that comes through meditation and this kind of stuff, fire, to purge yourself. Because what does fire do? Well, fire cleans all the other elements. Fire destroys all the other elements. Transformer. How to be transformed? Baptism of fire. And I think we're about done, man. It's good, solid 2 hours. So thanks for joining, guys.
Yeah.
Great.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, so I guess I will stop the broadcast. But before I do that, I did have one more question.
Yep.
There was a Hopi prophecy saying the purification cobwebs would be spun back and forth in the sky, and you were talking about being baptized in the spirit and fire, and how we cleansing with the flood. But I'm wondering if that was literal or that was all just metaphorical.
It's both. Mythological and metaphorical always precedes literal. Always. But the nature of the pattern of things, of this universe, always somehow manifests the metaphorical into the physical. They mirror each other. But always the causal is the metaphorical. It's always the transcendental. And it's always the mythological. So, all right, one example. Where it says, and God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Well, he didn't give one only begotten Son. We are all begotten sons, and we are all the Word made flesh, because the Christ dwells in us. So that is a metaphorical teaching. It's not literal, but it literally happens. I'll try and think of a better illustration, but yeah, it always precedes the literal.
No,
so you never back engineer it. You never go from the literal to the metaphorical. It doesn't work. This is what the churches are doing. Until you wake up and you realize that the true meaning is always... So in other words, the gospel is the ecliptic. You see, I'll just finish on this. I've always said in my presentations that The true gospel is the ecliptic. That's the only gospel. And yet we have 4 gospels in this book that copy the ecliptic. Everything in the gospels here written about Jesus is what the sun does on the ecliptic. It's archetypal. But you will find in history that many ascended ones and many godlike men and women followed the pattern that is in here by nature, because there's no other pattern. And so erroneously they have imposed the literal on top of the metaphorical. So they literally want a Jesus, God-man, mundane history, historical, had to have been born of a virgin, done all the same things. And by the way, all of the God-man saviors, they all had the same attributes and the same story. 12 disciples, born of a virgin, 3 wise men, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same stuff, which indicates that it is metaphorical first. And then literally, if it happens, and it does, then the first gospel rules. And so, analema. I love the analema. So what we learnt then is this is the Tropic of Cancer, this is the equator here, and this is the Tropic of Capricorn here. And little old Capricorn exists here. That's the 30 degrees of Capricorn. And that is the that's the goat spell, because the goat rules. The goat is the ruler of the solstitial axis. Opposite is Cancer, and that's the solstices. The goat is the ruler of this physical material part of the ecliptic. And in astrology, Capricorn has to do with earthly things, kings, presidents, rulers, government, and Cancer has to do with money, economy, the moon, silver, money. And this is feminine, material. Over here, Aries and Libra, they are spiritual, masculine. Aries is the Lamb of God, and it deals with spiritual themes, ecclesiastical, religious. And Libra also has to do with justice and mind and mental things and intellect. And so we have the goat spell. So every time the sun does one of these, it has done a gospel. How do I know? Well, same word. Goat spell, gospel. How do I know? Well, because the original word in Greek is tragos udi. The song, the ode, this is ode, the ode of the goat, tragos, and we get the word tragedy from that. Tragedi. Edi is ode, so it's the tragedy. What's a Greek tragedy? Well, a tragedy is a gospel. They're all the same. Nursery rhymes, fairy tales, tragedies, operas, gospels, stories, epics, whatever the hell you want to call the story, it's all this. Everything does this. Nothing does not do this. Everything starts here or here at the equinox or the solstice. The sheep and the goat. The sheep and the goat. And everything does a gospel, a goat's spell, because Capricorn rules the ecliptic. It's the carpenter's sign. It's the mason's sign. The motto for Capricorn is I use, I build. It's the mason. That's why Freemasons, they always got goats around. And that's why Jesus is the son of a carpenter, because he's born in December here, Christmas time. He's the son of the carpenter. The carpenter is the goat. It's the tragedy, the tragos udi, the goat spell, the gospel. There's nothing but gospels going on in the universe, guys. It's all gospels. Everything.
Beautiful.
Your life story is a gospel. So if you want to find a literal Jesus, go to the mirror and look at yourself. And for all of those good little Christians, goody-goody two-shoes, who loved Jesus and he came 2,000 years ago to save you, and he sneezed. Oh, no, he didn't. He burped. Oh, no, wait a minute. I think he farted. And they're fighting. The Jehovah's Witnesses are fighting because they say he farted. The Mormons say, no, he sneezed. Doesn't matter. It's history. It's done. There's no use having a historical saviour at all, at all, at all. It is stupidity. The everlasting Jesus Christ in your heart is the one that will always be with you forever and ever and ever and ever and a day. And that historical one is gone. You don't know whether he sneezed or whether, because the scriptures don't tell you all that detail. But when you meditate and you go into your heart, you will learn all the detail you need to know about the Christ and Christ consciousness. So this is why the literal historical is useless. It's pointless. It's like believing in Santa Claus. Whereas the literary, transcendental, not historical, mundane, the literary, transcendental value of this book far exceeds any sneezing or burping or farting of any, literal being that ever walked on this plane and that didn't need to. Why would he come for 30 seconds, teach a few blokes, a few tricks? Oh, this is God, that's God, and this is love, and that's love. Bye, I'm out of here. Didn't write anything. There's no writings of Jesus in here, is there? Why? Because it wasn't literal. The writings were written in the starry ecliptic way before we were born.
Is there time for one more question?
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah.
Are the souls who serve the archons, what are they promised? Are they promised eternal physical life? What is their agenda to do that much evil? Because in my experience, every soul does automatically, innately know the difference between good and evil. Why do you commit your life to evil? What is the promise?
They've been deceived. The deception is thus: they have been given a promise of a better life than here, and maybe they will. They may go to the moon, orb of the moon, where beings live. I don't think they qualify, but there are 7 places they can live above, or they can reincarnate here in the middle plane, or they can go to the subterranean 7 planets and live in luxury there. Not all of them are going to suffer in hell. Some of them will have a great life in the afterlife, but not where we're going. We're going to Vrindavan. We are going directly to the Godhead. We're not bothering with the 7 superior, subtle planets called Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. We're going beyond these demigods. These are archons. These are cosmocrators. They're good beings. And they're good places to live, much better than here. But why? Why? We can. The promise has been given to us. The promise is that we can return to Godhead, to be God and with God.
Thank you.
Yeah, why settle for anything less? I'm not.
Yeah.
I refuse to.
Well, this was a great one. I guess I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast. If anyone wants to hang on to the call, it's not going to end the call. It's just going to stop the broadcast, so feel free to do so. So thanks, everybody. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Santos.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Santos.
Yeah, thank you. Can someone please publish that on Facebook and get it around, because I've been booted off for 24 hours because I posted some truth about Hitler and National Socialism. Someone please publish that on Facebook and get it around, because I've been booted off for 24